The sexy Soulaan video is a polarizing topic in the pro-black community, and we really need to dig into everything around it. And I want to give you my thoughts and how I perceive this video and everything else around it. I'm your host, Cool Colas, and you are now tuning into a new video on my channel. So let's go ahead and get into it. For those of you all who do not know, the video Sexy Soulaan was kind of recently released by an artist named Monaleo. And for those of you all who have not seen this yet, this is a video that is talking vastly about foundational Black American culture, or in their term, Soulaan culture, or Soulani culture. And this video had a lot of different elements that were discussed. So, they talked about everything from dreaming a fish, which is a term that we've used in foundational Black American culture for when somebody's having a dream that one of their family members is pregnant. They talked about not inviting people to the cookout. They talked about reparations. They also talked a bit about hoodoo culture, such as spinning on the broom and how that's bad luck. It's also bad luck to put your purse on the floor. In other words, it can potentially bring bad financial misfortune if you're doing this. So they talked about a lot of different elements that are related to the culture. And then there's also the very catchy phrase in this, all the non-blacks to the back. So in other words, to basically say that we have our own spaces and we're gatekeeping that space and we're not allowing other people who are not a part of our culture or who are not Black into that space. So it covered a lot of different elements and things that we in the Black grassroots, we who are pro-Black, we who are B1, have also talked about as well too. The other thing I noticed in this video was that Monaleo was draped in a Black American flag. So for those of y'all who do not know, this was a flag that was created in 1967 by Melvin Charles and Gleason T. Jackson. And it was supposed to be a representation of us having our own thing. So in other words, there were a lot of us who didn't want to own the American flag, despite the fact that we are foundational and native to America. So we created our own thing to honor our lineage and our part in creating America, that being the entirety of it, because America itself was built on slave labor. So it was something that was created to show pride in Black American culture. And even the colors in this flag had a lot of symbolism. So for example, the red was supposed to be a symbol for the bloodshed that was suffered by Black Americans who are descendants of slaves. The black was supposed to be an honor and an homage to our Black race, our Black skin, and that part of our culture. And then the gold sword that you see in the middle, which I think is really cool, is supposed to symbolize strength. And then the gold wreath is supposed to symbolize peace and prosperity. So this was something that was supposed to just honor the things that we have suffered and the things that we have been through, while also recognizing our intellect, our strength, and our desire for peace, love, and a communal harmony between us as Black Americans. The reason why I'm telling y'all all this is because I just wanted to show you how much I respect the flag that actually was created back in 1967. Now, there's some people who say that's not our flag. Some of us who are foundational Black Americans, we're like, the only one that we honor is the foundational Black American flag that we see kind of walking around as well too. But the reality is that I honor both things. I think that anything that's going to create multiple symbols of our culture and our heritage that are actually powerful and are authentic to the things that our people of our culture have been through, I think that they should be respected. And I think this shows the variety, so they can't co-opt the things that we put out there about ourselves, whether it's terminology, whether it's some type of symbol, whether it's a flag, or whatever would actually exemplify us in a way that is appropriate and respectful. Additionally, I will also say that I honor the actual term Soulaan, because there's a lot of people who are going around saying that there's a beef between people who use the term Soulaan and people who use the term foundational Black American. And there is no beef. We're aligned in our thinking, and we're aligned in the idea that we are Black Americans who are foundational to America itself. That being that our ancestors built the nation. And for those of you all who do not know, the term Soulaan was a more newly created term around maybe 2020. And it was made by Marac Wallace, Dwayne Coleman, and T. Roy Parks. And this was a term that also is synonymous of foundational Black Americans. And it was meant to signify talking about Black Americans as in that we are individuals who have soul. Soulaan is a combination between soul and autochthonous Americans. And for those of y'all who do not know what autochthonous means, it means one who's indigenous to that particular land. So they created this term by taking these two things and then jamming them together to create the term that you see. And that's why you see with Soulaan, it has two A's in it. So that was the whole premise of it. To me, I see it as a synonymous thing. It's kind of like saying either foundational Black American, Soulaan, Black American freedmen, they're all meaning the same thing. And again, this adds variety to the way that we claim and identify ourselves and our culture. And it's a good thing because it allows us to, again, have enough variety where the terms that we're using don't get co-opted and don't get turned into these other random things. Because you even have some of these mayo-eating white supremacists who are out here talking about, I'm a foundational white American. And it's like, what did your family build that actually was successful? Not a damn thing, because my family built it on slave labor. Enough with the history lesson. Let's take a look at this video and kind of what's going on here. Although I think that the message itself is great, I overall have mixed feelings about this entire thing. And I want to kind of take you into why I'm feeling this way. The first thing that I want to say is that, I'm not somebody who's like, oh, it's just bad whenever I see a Black woman twerking and this and that. I don't mind a little twerk. I don't mind a little ass shaking. I ain't gonna lie to you. But the one thing that I will say is that it's not really of our culture, from my perspective, to have women in a fashion where they're twerking around kids at a barbecue and stuff like that. That's not really our culture, because a lot of like older foundational Black American women are actually kind of put off and disgusted by those types of actions, which is why we have this big idea of people going around saying that, there's a lot of respectability politics and all this other stuff going on. Because our culture is big on, well, you shouldn't do that because of this, because of how it looks, because, we look bad as a people when we act this way and we're gyrating and acting a fool and all this other stuff. So because I know that we have this culture, I do think that it's out of place to have that type of image where Black women are shaking their fat asses around a bunch of kids. Like it's not really something that I would expect from us. And then there's a part of me that kind of pulls from a different angle too, because then I'm like, well, it does say sexy Soulaan. So the idea might be for them to kind of have this level of hypersexuality while also talking about Black American culture. So in a way, I kind of feel like I'm being pulled in two different directions. Like, hey, this is not really a part of our culture. But then at the same time, it does say sexy. So I guess the whole idea is for them to have some type of sex appeal. And one might even make the argument that by them twerking and doing all this ratchet stuff and whatnot, this was a sensational way to try to get other people's attention. So they're basically rolling off the idea of being posturing, being polarizing, being something that other people are going to want to pay attention to because it's the typical thing that they like when they look at rap music today, while also being able to hear the lyrics and how they're actually positive. So I think that there's a part of it that feels like this is kind of the message. But if you continue to just look a little bit further, the message itself is also questionable as well too. Because if you have a song called Sexy Soulaan, one can make the argument that they're trying to put the sexy piece in it, but the Soulaan piece is what becomes that question. The reality is that they're not making it very clear from both the lyrics and the imagery combined whether or not this is supposed to be purely for foundational Black Americans or this is Pan-African-esque. Because if you look in this video, there's a lot of images, obviously, where we're showing Black American culture, right? Or some type of symbol of it, but at the same time, you see all these different Black flags that are in the background. You don't just see the Black American flag that's draped on Monaleo. You also see all these Caribbean and African flags that are all in the back as well too, which creates the idea that the message is about Pan-Africanism, not necessarily about the empowerment of foundational Black Americans as a total focus. To me, all of this is a bit performative. And I think that's my other problem with this. I think it's cool that you have lyrics and you're trying to do things that would get people excited and interested in what you're creating. But at the same time, there also has to be a level of decorum. And there's different things that you could have showcased about foundational Black American culture that are actually true to who we are. This obviously just shows the more gutter, the more degenerate parts of our culture, and then trying to kind of tie in some very powerful elements into it. But if you wanted to do that, you could talk a lot about the vast things that we have in our history. I mean, think about all the great inventors, the great entertainers, the great civil rights leaders who have done powerful and great things that have revolutionized the world and have made them icons again, not just to American society, but just globally to the world in general. We have so many different icons. And then what we did here was try to create a powerful message while showing something that was degenerate. So again, it makes me very divided. And I just want to keep reiterating. It was just an okay song. I'm going to be honest with you. Going back though, what I also don't like about the whole Pan-Africanist versus foundational Black American messaging issue is that it's not very clear on how deeply they were trying to appeal to the Soulaan part, because they appealed to the sexy part by, again, having chicks twerking. But at the same time, when it came to the whole Soulaan thing, it's showing that they're trying to appeal more to a Black union more than they are to this idea that we're promoting foundational Black American culture exclusively and giving it the shine that it actually deserves. But by calling it Sexy Soulaan, it makes it seem like that's the entire thing, especially when she's going around calling herself the Black American princess and all this other stuff. The other thing I think about too is in the chorus, she literally says, all the non-Blacks to the back, all the non-Blacks to the back. That sounds powerful, sure, but at the same time, it's paying more homage to just Black people as a whole, like flat Blackness, versus actually talking about foundational Black Americans exclusively, as the title says. So it now presents a contradiction. So if anybody were to go back and they say, oh, well, this was really about kind of putting sex in it and making it sexy because other people wanted to view it, it was making it sensational and it actually goes with the title, I would go back and I would say, well, why didn't it ride off of Soulaan? Because it's like it kind of was somewhat about foundational Black American culture, but at the same time, it leaned more into Pan-Africanist narratives. I want to be clear with you all. I have no problem with Pan-Africanism as a concept. I do think that we should be unified with our brothers and sisters from the diaspora as long as they are on code. But sometimes with these Pan-Africanist messages, my problem comes when it's portrayed like there's some type of diaspora war. There is no diaspora war. There is this idea that you have foundational Black Americans who have been disrespected after letting all types of people into the community, and that being other Black people. And now we're finally starting to pop back. That's really what it comes down to. And I don't like this idea of that being a thing. So I want to get into some other mechanics with that because there's some other issues around this as well too that I'm starting to see. And here's a few other things that you probably didn't think about as well too. One of the things that I realized is that Monaleo's manager is a Nigerian dude who goes by the name Uncle Toby. And Uncle Toby is essentially doing what I am kind of seeing to a certain extent with Arlette and BM on Pop the Balloon. And what I'm starting to kind of see is what I would call tether controlled opposition, trying to create a deceptive message, but then draping it in something that seems powerful. So for example, if you look at Pop the Balloon, you have this idea of showcasing these more degenerate or just out of place relationships that are happening in the Black community, especially when it comes to foundational Black Americans and the way people behave. That's why all the time you have all these different Black people who will be, meeting up with Arlette and BM is out here finger wagging and shit acting like they daddy, because what they're trying to make it seem like is that there are these Africans who have their shit together and things going on for themselves. And here they are basically telling other Black people how they need to act like A, B, C, and D. So it's trying to present this image of packaging and profiting off of what's happening with Black people, especially foundational Black Americans, and then trying to make it seem like, you're doing this for the betterment of trying to create healthy relationships. The same thing is going on here to a certain extent. If you create messages that allow foundational Black Americans to talk about things loosely, such as reparations, and then kind of sprinkles of their culture and things like that in rap music, then you can also put your own messages into it as well too. That message in this case being, oh, well, we're talking about Pan-African Union and putting on for all Black people. Because if we're talking about a sexy Soulaan, why are we talking about other cultures of people? Why not make a song to just talk about Pan-Africanism? Why do you have to include that in talking about just the Soulaan or foundational Black American culture? That's my problem. Even when you watch the Breakfast Club interview that Monaleo did with Charlemagne and Jess Hilarious and all them, you can even hear her talking about how, we're all Black at the end of the day, so it really doesn't matter. And her talking about she wanted to put on for the union of Black people. See, that's playing into exactly what I saw and what gave me like mixed feelings even going into just watching this and thinking about how I received it. I also did not like when she made that comment about how at the end of the day, when the cops see us, they all see us as Black. I didn't really like that because that undermined the power of delineation. Because one of the reasons why we're actually delineating is because we're doing that in order to get reparations and get ourselves organized, because we're talking about how what's fair is to give reparations to the individuals who have been harmed in the United States, that being foundational Black Americans. So when you make a comment like that, you take the focus away from us delineating for us and then seeing things from the perspective of the dominant society. And if I'm being quite honest with you, even the dominant society does look at us differently and does know the difference between us and uses us differently. Yes, you have FBA coons and you have FBA shields, but have you noticed that a lot of these kind of more tethers are used in political positions and are used to represent us and whatnot? Even if you look at an example like WWE, notice that foundational Black American men are treated worse even than non-foundational Black American men. Now think about it. We're all treated like shit. I ain't gonna lie to you. We all are. But there is a difference in the way that they treat us, because there's a certain camaraderie and understanding that we as foundational Black Americans have for the way the white supremacist operates on the land that our family and ancestors have crafted, versus people who are coming from another area and they have a different mindset and mentality when they come over here. And then it often creates this image of them doing whatever they can, even if it means undermining us, because they see themselves differently than we do. We've been letting people into our culture for a long time, and that includes some Black people, right? Some Black people of other cultures. And a lot of them have undermined us despite the fact that they have come over here from another country and have tried to even in some cases cosplay as us. That is not cool. So we're not going to just create a flat Blackness argument when there's a specific purpose in us doing delineation. That being that we are trying to advocate for reparations. Shit, the thing is, Mona Lisa, you talked about reparations in your song, yet you want to undermine that by not even representing that delineation as part of why reparations is going to be effective. The thing that kind of bothered me at the end of the day was this idea that I wasn't sure what message she really was trying to send. Then when she said that, it tells me that this really wasn't about Soulaans. It actually was about Pan-Africanism, which I wish they would have just been upfront about that. So the reason why I said that this is more so tether controlled opposition is because it's trying to give the facade like it's creating a powerful message, specifically in this case about foundational Black Americans. But the idea is to create this idea of, well, the gender war, the diaspora war needs to stop. There needs to be Pan-African unions. All Black people need to get along because there's too much fighting between us. But it's missing the point of the idea that it should have been about foundational Black Americans solely. And they got Monaleo to basically be their puppet to portray the same narratives that they were thinking as well too. I want to be clear. I'm not trying to disrespect Monaleo. I can tell just from the way that she speaks and the things that she says that she's not just this lovable hood rat. She's not just this like little hood rat that you got out of the hood, and she can rap on the beat a little bit, and she's kind of got a weird looking face, but they take her from a 5 or a 4 to being like a 7 or 8, and then she rapped on the beat and she made a lot of money from it. She's not that type from what I can see. I can tell that she is articulate. I can tell that she's somebody who's intelligent, and I can tell that she's somebody who is very thorough. But I also see that she has a lot of naivete, and she's being used as a pawn to portray a message that's different than the message that we as foundational Black Americans in the grassroots who are pro-Black are trying to portray. But either way, this is my perspective. Y'all may have a different one. Feel free to let me know below what you think about this, because my feeling is that I have mixed feelings, but I lean more towards something isn't right about this. And I have a hard time with trying to get behind things when I believe there is a controlled opposition narrative that is going on that's trying to make you think that there's something that's powerful happening, when in actuality, there is a hidden message behind it. I do not like deception. As a matter of fact, I hate deception more than even lying, because at least if you're lying, you're just telling something that's opposite of what is to be true. But if you're being deceptive, you're trying to tell what's somewhat of a truth, but is cloaked in a hidden agenda. I don't like that bullshit. All right, y'all, that's all I have for this topic. I hope y'all like what I had to say. I definitely will have more to come in the future, so make sure you stay tuned. In the meantime, I would love it if you like this video, subscribe, share it, and also hit the bell icon so you get notifications for whenever I come out with new content on this channel. Other than that, I will talk to y'all later. Peace out, y'all.